minute late because we've been arguing about dad jokes for a while and got logged over the end. So anyway, welcome Brandon, welcome Carson, and welcome our special guest, Brynne Tillman.
I'm special. I love that.
You're bringing some class to the show, all right?
And I got to say, so Brynne was highly, obviously I've known Brynne for years, but Brynne was highly recommended. From time to time we solicit the audience and some of our listeners for guest suggestions, and Brynne was top of the heap. So we rushed her to the head of the class here.
I love it. That's the class I bring.
So pressure is on. Pressure is on. So welcome to all the live people. If you're on, please jump in. Let us know you're here, where you're from, what you're doing. And if you're listening to the podcast, welcome as well. Brandon, who are we sponsored by this week?
We didn't talk about that. Who's got it? We're going to be, we got Fist Bump this week. Is that who was on the docket?
Who was on the docket this week, yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I wasn't prepared. Yep. So this week we get to be sponsored by Fist Bump. The commenting task tool inside of LinkedIn at getfistbumps.com.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Brynne, we want to hear a bit about your background, but before we do that, we have to start with, as we always start, is our dad joke challenge. And Brandon has been pounding his chest about how good his joke is. Do we have him go first, or do we have ChatGPT go first?
Let's have him go first. And you know what's interesting? So, maybe I should give him a bad ChatGPT joke today, just to let him win and keep things good.
I appreciate that.
Like a softball, like a little softball pitch.
Yeah, maybe.
Very humbling.
Yeah.
We'll see what I need.
wrote my own dad joke.
Yeah, and Brynne has a joke too.
Brynne's got one too. So, we may see a week where neither ChatGPT or Brandon wins.
Well, I think then, number one, welcome to all the people that are showing up already and putting in their comments and telling us where they're from. Kirsten, I haven't seen Kirsten for a while. We could throw here and there. Hi, Kirsten. Good to see you. And Dave and anyone else, let us know who you are, where you're from. And if you have a dad joke to compete, man, throw it in. Let's get going. And welcome to everybody on the podcast too. We'll make sure that we speak the dad jokes out and everything, so you're not left out.
All right, Brandon, let's do it.
I would say, Brynne, you have the choice. You're the guest. Would you like to go first, second, or last?
So I'm going to go first because it's less competition when you go first. And inspired by. So I've heard that ChatGPT will cut a salesperson's workload in half. So I opened 2 accounts.
Oh,
that's good.
Well done.
That's good.
All right. I
like it. Let's
Brandon, you're up.
Okay. So yesterday I grilled a chicken for 2 hours, but it still wouldn't tell me why it crossed the road.
Woohoo! I'll take that one. I like it.
Carson, you need a little bit more time.
I think I got a little smile out of Carson.
Yeah, you did. That's pretty good. I asked ChatGPT to provide a funny dad joke. How do you catch a squirrel? You climb a tree and you act like a nut.
Boy, this is tough. I'm going to go with Brynne.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guest star wins.
Yeah.
If the whole LinkedIn thing doesn't work out, I'll start writing dad joke books.
Well,
there you go. What about the audience? Would love to hear what the audience thinks.
Well, everybody knows that I've been losing so much on the dad joke challenges that our video editor for our snippets and his wife sent me 2 new books that I obviously needed help, and it's still not helping. But that's okay. It's the love of the game, not the thrill of the victory, right?
That's it. The pursuit.
I think we have my guess is we're going to have a bit of a split decision here, but Dave thinks Carson won, but I'm still going with
I can't take credit. I mean, it's the AI. I'm just representing.
It's the prompt engineer, Carson.
There you go.
It's only as good as your prompt.
That's true. That is true.
That is true. We'll talk about that too.
Maybe Brian's will win. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. Oh man, all he's doing is just leveling the field for it. We just have too much parity today.
We do. And Kirsten, I see you're back in the social selling world. That's awesome. It's been a while. I'd love to catch up and hear what you're doing, see if we can support you in any way. Brandon said Carson won. And I guess Butch isn't on today. So my one vote that I always get isn't even here today.
I'll vote for you, Brandon.
Thanks, Brent. I appreciate that.
I'm so confused. Let's get started.
Please.
Yeah, I'm confused. So Brynne, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into social and all of that. And then we're going to talk today about a question that we get a lot of is, my prospects aren't active on social. What do I do? How do I handle this? But tell us a bit about your background, Brynne.
Well, my background, I have my lamp. I'm sorry. See, I have the dad joke in my head now.
Man.
So I'm a recovering sales trainer. And, I love sales. But personally, I do not like cold calling. And that was the one area that held me back from having the perfect job, which was a sales job. And then I found LinkedIn. And I realized that there were opportunities in here to connect with people and really leverage our thought leadership and our network to start conversations without having to cold call. I'm not dissing cold calling, guys. If you love it, go for it. If you don't, I've got some great ideas for you, even when it's hard to get a response. So that's today.
Yeah, I love that call out, Brynne, because I grew up, cut my teeth in a cold calling environment. I'm not averse to it, but we got to meet our clients where they are. And in this digital era, LinkedIn is such a valuable tool. And I think we're remiss not to explore mastery of any tool that gets us closer to our customer. So thank you for that.
Awesome. So what's my first question?
Well, let's take a step back, right? And we're talking about people who we want to talk about, using LinkedIn and social. Mm-hmm. But I guess in the same way that if people aren't answering their phone in the cold call world, what if people are not on LinkedIn? What if they're not, or at least they don't appear, maybe that's the right word, to be on LinkedIn in terms of commenting or posting or whatever. And I think, the statistics are right. There's really only a quote small number of people. What is it, Brandon? 2%, 3%, something like that post on LinkedIn regularly?
Regularly. Right.
Regularly. I mean, I think that's probably picking up, but it's not a huge amount. But then you also have the commenting and the engagement in general. But some people aren't doing any of that, or there is a situation where they may not do any of that. So I think the first question that we want to throw out is, okay, well, if that's the situation, what's the first thing that we should be thinking about? How should we be, do we just throw all those people away and say they're not qualified prospects or candidates, or what do we start thinking about? So Brynne, why don't you kick us off?
So first, let's just talk about the fact that even if they're not engaging on LinkedIn, it doesn't mean they're not there. There are a ton of lurkers. And our goal is to convert a lurker to an engager. And engaging does not just mean they share content. I've had people that I've talked to that hadn't shared any activity in years, but they were still on LinkedIn every day. So making an assumption that just because they don't share content doesn't mean they're active is exactly that. It's an assumption, and assume what that means. Okay. So again, dad jokes in my head, it's hard to get out. So the first thing we have to do is get out of our own heads and say, oh, they're not there. They're not engaging. The second thing we have to do is make sure we are positioned that when we do engage, that we're of interest to them. So one of the mistakes that salespeople make is they go out and they connect and they pitch and they get no response because our pitch is not of interest to them. It's not like they're raising their hand saying, I want to learn about your product or service. So we actually are repelling people. We're like, oh, we're not getting responses, but we're not getting responses because we're talking about what we as salespeople want to talk about, not what our prospects want to consume. So we have to make that shift, and we have to understand that our goal is not to lead with our solution, which is the pitch. Our goal is to lead to our solution, and that can be through content, through conversation, or through introductions or shared connections. So, but when we lead with our solution, it always comes across as a pitch. Rather than constantly telling people how we can help them, let's simply help them and earn the right. Get them to say, hey, this is someone who's interesting, that has me thinking differently about how I'm doing things. So the first thing is to fix ourselves before we go out to try to fix them, to the people that are not responding, right? We have to be worth responding to. So a lot of us will project and say they're just not on LinkedIn, and that may be true for some of them, but most of them, you're just not interesting enough to them.
Yeah, I think and Brandon and Carson, definitely interested in your take on this too. I think you said something right in the very beginning that I think is really important about mindset, which is a conversation topic that we've had, is if you have the mindset, oh, they're just not there, then you're just disqualifying everything right out of the bat. But if you change the mindset that they're there, but they just may not be actively posting, it completely opens the field up a completely different way.
Yeah. And, when we were talking that there might be a movie quote in here, I went right to my Yoda, which is do or do not. There is no try.
I love this because Brynne brings the dad jokes and the movie references. This is amazing.
I was prepared.
Perfect guest.
Yeah.
We had a good green room chat conversation before we went on, and Brynne's nailing it for sure.
Right. You made my job easy today, Brynne. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. That's enough for me. So that's awesome.
So, and Rob also liked your comment about, you don't lead with our solution. We lead to our solution. I don't know if I said that right, but that's,
that's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. And like Tom won't say this because he's a gentleman that way, but that's, if you're wondering, anyone's kind of curious about it, Tom's book, The Revenue Zone, talks through that. How do we set up the yellow brick road that they want to walk down and get to see the wizard, which is demand generation. Sorry, just had to do the shout out.
Brandon, thank you for the shout out, but look at the weaving in another movie with the wizard.
That one's easy. You set it up.
Yeah. So man, we're going to beat our record for last week with 8 movie references, I think, so far. So
you guys do better without me.
Yeah.
Daniel came prepared last week. That's for sure.
Carson, you just set the bar so high that when you're not here, everyone has to feel like they have to be really ultra prepared.
I love that. Brynne had a lot of really good mic drop comments, especially about converting the lurkers. And, Tom, you alluded to this. I think the assumption, and frankly, I've been told the same thing, the customers, executives that we're after, they're not out on LinkedIn. But someone is, and someone in that organization likely is, and someone who influences the people that you ultimately want to get to likely is. And I think that's the key element. And we talk about that on this show a lot, is how do you create that groundswell of influence within an organization? Really, you just need that first domino to fall. So I may not get to the CEO or the CFO or the CIO or the CSO or CMO right out of the gate, but if I can get to their VP or I can get to someone else within the C-suite that makes that warm introduction, guess what? Now I've leveraged LinkedIn to create a relationship that never would have existed otherwise. And that's the key. You just need that first domino to fall. It's not going to necessarily look like what you think you want it to begin with.
This is mapping out social proximity. This is the magic of LinkedIn. Look, we could be thought leaders anywhere. We could be thought leaders on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. But on LinkedIn, the real magic when it comes down to it is the ability to map out your social proximity, right? So the most, and the way that LinkedIn gives us, whether you have Sales Navigator or even you're working in the mothership, LinkedIn.com, you are really given all the tools you need to do this. And most people don't recognize that even in the free, there is so much value. You can hop right into a company page and search, do I have any first degree connections inside this company? And per Carson's conversation, right, it doesn't mean it's the decision maker, but even if it's someone that you can gather intel on, I can just talk to them and say, hey, what's going on inside of the company? What are the changes? What's the culture like? Are they a learning culture or are they like an old traditional, we've been doing it the same way and we will continue to do it the same way. Like you can learn a lot depending on what you want to know. Yeah. Another magic social proximity that most people never use, and I have found this to be incredible in the social listening realm of things, is to search who used to work there that you're connected to and start having conversations with them, because they'll sing like a canary, right? Like, because they left and they have so many things to say about them, and you could get all the ugly, but you could get some of the interesting and good as well. But you can find, how did they make their buying decisions before? Is it on committee or is there a dictatorship that one person just says yay or nay? Right? There is so much that we can learn before we get to that decision maker, that when we do get there, whether it's through content or through your social proximity, getting introductions into people that you could get introductions into, you are more prepared than any of your competition. Mm-hmm. And you are more prepared with understanding what objections you're going to get beforehand, so you can handle them before they say them. You can find out if they've had good, bad, or indifferent experiences with your competitors before. I mean, it's a gold mine. And by the way, your decision maker does not have to be active on LinkedIn to do all of that, because other people in their organization are active, to Carson's point.
That's powerful. 3 quick hits. First off, shout out to Dave. Field of Dreams reference in the chat. I'd be remiss not to point that out. I don't even have to make a movie reference today, and I don't think I will, because the great ones are coming out of the audience. Second, Brynne said some really powerful things that we've never covered on this show before, and I think really need to be pointed out. The free version of LinkedIn, you can do so much. The biggest deal I've ever closed in my career, I used the free version of LinkedIn. I actually went down in meetings where I was far from the smartest guy in the room. I'd let the smart people talk, and I was going down prospecting on LinkedIn, using it to reach out to folks in my top target organization. The last thing I wanted to point out is, how often do we get these new executives where maybe we can't crack the code? Maybe they're not super active on LinkedIn, but you can go in and you can see who they're connected with, that either you're connected with or somebody that they're connected with that you know, and that you can reach out to, or somebody in your own organization. There is such powerful intel that you can get. I remember an executive years ago that I could not crack the code on. Believe it or not, it happens. And I went in and I found somebody that I worked with that I didn't know personally, but that worked in my organization, that had worked with this person previously, called them up, got all the skinny, got them to give me a warm introduction, and magic happened.
Yeah.
So, my first big corporate account for LinkedIn, I was still doing sales training and I was playing with LinkedIn. And in fact, we were doing free stuff as a loss leader. That's how early in my career this was. And Aramark in Philadelphia, in a group, Nicole Bradley, who was working there at the time, put, hey, we just went through the Challenger sale training. We asked them what's next, and they said, go get some LinkedIn training. So they put out LinkedIn training. There were a couple of companies at the time, very few, and I threw my hat in the ring, and I actually went directly. It was in a group. I went directly in there, and then I reached out to Nicole, and she's like, I did a little looking. You're a tiny company. It's really 2 of you, and we're Aramark, for goodness sake. How could you support us? So, and that was I never talked to her. It was just in an email exchange. So I went in and I said, who's our shared connections? And Professor Richards was a shared connection. Who is that? Someone that taught at Rutgers, and I'd go in and teach her class once a semester on how to use LinkedIn. So I said, how do you know Nicole? And she goes, oh, she was one of my best students of all times. I love her. So he said, well, here's the situation. So not only, because I did this favor for Professor Richards, not only did she say to Nicole, hey, you should talk to Brynne, but she took Nicole to lunch and told her why I'm the only one she'd ever bring into her classroom. Great. That's awesome. I get a call from Nicole, and she's like, look, I still don't think you're a fit, but we'll talk to you. I went in and I left. They handed me the Challenger sale and said, please build us a course around this book. And I did. And at the end of the day, and all, in all of this, it was about that relationship. Right. I would never have gotten in there. So I was able to scale fast because once I had Aramark, I could tell Comcast I had Aramark. And once I had Comcast, right? So it was just one big account gave me the credibility to go into a lot of big accounts. And I couldn't have done it without that relationship.
No, that's an amazing story. And it's like multi-dimensional social. Brandon, I know you have a take on this.
Yeah, well, we've been in some really good stuff and kind of bounced a little bit within this space. But number one, I've got to go to the comments because Bruce said, but the Wizard of Oz, the wizard was a fraud. That is true, but Dorothy still got home. And a lot of times in sales, we deal with some shysters along the way. But if we still close the deal, we're successful in what we do. It's all good. So just had to throw that in there. But yeah, I think what I was thinking of too, as we were talking about that, one of a tool within even basic LinkedIn that I think a lot of people overlook is we're talking about our prospects are not active. Right. And Tom, you and I had somebody we were working with a month or so ago, and they were just kind of like, oh, but the people we want to talk to aren't active. And they just want to put their head down and quit and throw their hands up and go, social selling doesn't work. The other thing you can do with a company, when you go to a company page and you start to see all the people in the company, you can use a filter and see who's posted in the last 7 days or the last 30 days. And now you're seeing all the people that are active. Now, again, as Brynne said earlier, just because they're not commenting or publishing doesn't mean they're not active. They still could be, like to call them viewers, not lurkers, but they still could be viewers. They could still be logging in. And if your content is interesting, as Brynne said, to them, they're still consuming it. But take the time and look and see who's active. And we had an example with somebody, the person that was active happened to be the CHRO for job postings, but she was very active. And then we were positioning our customer and go, well, start engaging with them, build that relationship. She's at the C-suite, for goodness sake, and she's active. And that was the route that we go. So go to the company page, you see all the people, hit your filters, say who's posted in the last 30 days, 7 days, whatever. And it's like a custom feed right there. You just see all the posts.
So that's available in Sales Navigator. And I think that's one of the most incredible tools is that who's posted for sure.
Can you see that, Brandon, in the regular version, or is that only?
You know what? I do have Navigator, but I do it inside of LinkedIn. So I got to remember if that a less robust version of that is available on LinkedIn. I'm gonna have to go look and remember what it was.
Well, regardless, you can go on even to the company page and see who's engaging. Right. Yeah. There's so much that you can do around that. But if I could share a couple other things. So I do believe that mapping into your social proximity is huge. But there are other things that we can do, particularly if we're going that high executive C-suite that's typically not responsive. Often what we want to do is play into their ego. And I know, but it's true, right? So here are some of the things that we do. Number one, we're writing an ebook on social selling from the top down. We're reaching out to CEOs that have companies where they have a modern approach to digital sales. And, we're asking them a few questions and, to get some quotes into our ebook. As, someone that I highly respect and a company that I really love, I would be honored if you'd give me 7 minutes. And that's what I do. I have a 7-minute Calendly where I can ask you a couple questions and potentially quote you in our upcoming ebook. I would say, now I don't want to give a statistic because I'd make it up. I would say that the response rate is extremely high. Now, there's a few reasons I want 7 minutes. I don't want to bait and switch this gal or this guy. I want to make sure that I keep it honest. And this is what I'm doing. This is not a sales call. This is, hey, I want to build a rapport with you and highlight you as a subject matter expert. We have an influencer of the week, Carson, in one, that where people will, they fill out a form and they go, this is an influencer I'm interested in you promoting. And so we thank them and we have an influencer and we promote them. We build rapport with people that just because we're highlighting them, and I'm not out selling these people. I am starting a conversation. I'm not bait and switching this, but now they know me. I know them. I can now find other content that I think they'll like. And I use listen notes like nobody's business. Listen notes is where almost all the podcasts in the world are listed. So if I'm talking with a CEO and she says something like, one of the things we're really focused on are DEI strategies for equity and inclusion. I'm going to go find a really good podcast or blog post or YouTube video on DEI. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to vet it. And then I'm going to send it and say, hey, I watched this video and I thought of you based on our conversation. I continue to bring value, even if it has nothing to do with my LinkedIn training. And a few things will happen, right? We'll build that rapport. I'll send content. Maybe now a few times in, I have created, now we have the ebook that she's quoted in, and that ebook will lead to my solution that she has a quote in, right? So I have very carefully designed this to stay engaged. When it comes out, she is going to read it because she is in it. Right. And also it gives me credibility that I've been talking to these CEOs. So there are so many ways to start conversations. The key, and then I'll be quiet, but the key here, there's two really. The first one is we have to detach from what the prospect is worth to us and attach to what we are worth to the prospect.
Yeah. You know what I'm liking about this, and I think it's important to take a step back because some of the comments and things that we're talking about in this show are a little bit different than some of the ways we've looked at things before. But let's take a step back, right? In sales, we're working with B2B, right? Business to business, hence the word. We're looking as one business to make a sale with another business. Obviously, we're trying to do that. You don't make a sale without dealing with the people. But what we're talking about here, which I really like, is we're saying, how do we use social to build a relationship into the business so that we can then have an opportunity for a business to business sale? And I think that's very different than looking at it from, well, I want to connect with Joe, the CEO, and Joe's not active on LinkedIn. So therefore I'm screwed. I'm not going to be able to connect into this business. I mean, we've talked about, 25 different things probably so far today that helps me get in the door and start building the relationship in that business. And I wanted to even, address Tim's comment here. He said, what about people who only go on when they're looking for jobs? I think, sure, there's people that only go on every once in a while, but you see what we just talked about, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because if you look at the fact that I want to get in and build a relationship with this company, and I'm going to use whatever tools and relationships I can to do that.
Hey, Tom, we
lost your audio.
What about now?
You're back.
Okay. If I hit my microphone, everything sort of, and
hey,
I was getting all excited and everything like that.
It must have been gremlins.
Yeah, it was. I can't keep up with this.
I love it. This is great.
So anyway, yeah, I think it's just about, all the different, it's not an exact recipe, like you said, Carson, like you put in this much of this, and you have to be able to adapt and go through the thing here. What do you think, Carson?
Can I just share the other thing? So it's the detached from what the prospect is worth to you, attached to what you're worth to the prospect. And you need to slow down your outreach to speed up the outcome. Yes. This is about quality rapport building. This is not about, and the KPIs, by the way, that sales leaders have on LinkedIn are broken. This isn't how many net new connections did you get, right, but how many conversations did you start with the few connections that you spent time nurturing.
That's right. And what are those built into? And just a quick follow up on Tim, what he's saying here is when they're looking for jobs, help them and land in their new company. I mean, that's a great, again, that's a great way to help provide value, right? Serve, provide value.
And frankly, even today's casual job searcher might also be today's buyer. There's a lot of folks that are potentially looking casually and not necessarily posting and engaging a ton, but they might still be today's buyer. Those are valuable ways to just create and invest in those relationships. Brynne, I'm curious because I know our topic today really comes down to inactive leads and really just using LinkedIn to activate relationships. I've seen a lot of these trends, and I've tried just about everything over the course of time with LinkedIn, and I'd love to get your thoughts. You see a lot of folks that are thought leaders. I think they go out sometimes and they'll tag a lot of people in comments and their posts, and I know why. I mean, obviously you get a lot of eyeballs on it, you get engagement, and so it amplifies thanks to the LinkedIn algorithm. You also see these pods. You've probably been in some in your time where you're in these pods, so you share a post that you shared today, and everybody goes out and likes each other's posts to like help it with the algorithm. What are your thoughts on these things? Are these worth our time, or should we as sellers be guiding our efforts into other directions?
So first, I'm going to go backwards. Let's start with pods. So the mandatory share pods are terrible. Where you go, okay, every Thursday you post something and we'll all go in. And then on Fridays, she's going to post something and we'll go. And then Mondays, he's going to post and only once a week. And so those are terrible. And it's the exact same people engaging every single time. And although I don't know for sure, I'm pretty confident that LinkedIn's algorithm bots are going to pick that up. However, we have a membership and we have our own little pod in our membership. And the rule is, if your network can benefit from this, please share and engage on it.
Yeah.
If they can't, don't. We're just letting you know that there's a new piece of content out there. So it's not an official pod, but it's a communication place, and there is zero expectation from anyone to do anything unless there's a real connection. So that's number one, in my opinion. Number two, tagging people without their permission is worse than spam in my book. Now, I have team members that I tag. They know it's coming. If I share one of Carson's quotes or a blog post or content and I tag him as the author, fabulous, right? I'm giving credit. But when you tag simply to get engagement, I think that it will backfire in the long run. Especially if you do it and someone untags themselves, LinkedIn will bury your content. They'll be like, this is spam. And once LinkedIn has identified you as spam, it is really hard to come out of that hole, right? So be authentic. Now, I do a lot of what I'm about to tell you, which is I take inventory and say, who in my network would I like to vote on this poll? Would I like to get the insights? And I use the little paper airplane at the very bottom of the comment. And now you can blind copy up to 50 people at a time. And I will, put in the names of the people and I'll say, as someone in sales and valuable in my network, I would love to hear your thoughts on this post and comments. And so it's going into the inbox. That is incredibly effective for me. They don't feel spammed. It's someone, I'm a first degree connection. It's someone that I wouldn't do this to a stranger, and I'm getting it into the inbox. And they can engage or not engage. And often in my note, I'll say, if this resonates with you, I'd really love your perspective, because I want to give them an out. And I almost want it permission-based, right? Like, there is no pressure if you don't want to do this. So if this resonates with you, I'd love your one-click vote on this poll. I'd love your thoughts. Now, I'll tell you what has happened, and not all the time, but they'll come back and say, interesting, this is a topic we're talking about internally. I'd love to hear what insights you gleaned from it. Like, okay, they just qualified themselves for a conversation because they are sharing with me that this is an internal conversation. And, you know, when we invite people and they may never vote and they may never comment, but because I got it in the inbox, I made it easy for them to respond and start a conversation with me. And that is the goal. And they know that it's private. They may be someone that will never.
More for that.
Like, yeah. So, and it's interesting because those points are granted to the author and to you.
Right.
Right. So when you share content, LinkedIn is like, this is someone who's truly engaged. We are going to amplify their voice just a little bit more because they're engaged.
Yep.
And LinkedIn likes to reward people who are engaged. The other interesting thing, and we tested this and holy cow, it works, is if I have a prospect that I am, and they have to be active for this to work, but if I have a prospect that has no idea who I am, they are a second degree connection, but I go in and I follow and I ring their bell. And now and it's got to be someone who's active. And whenever they share content, I engage, they will start to see your content. This is incredible. We have never had that kind of power before. But recognize the more you engage with the people you want to get on the radar of, the more likely they are to see your content. And we did a little test on this, and we did it with 3 people. And holy cow, all 3 of them within a few weeks were engaging on our content unsolicited.
Yep. Yeah, I fully agree. Not only agree, but we've tested that as well. And it speaks to the power of actually commenting. And especially when it's people that don't know who you are and you start commenting, whew, magically your posts start ending up in their newsfeed over and over, because the algorithm sees you connected, right? The algorithm doesn't see it as, oh, which way did this go? The algorithm doesn't care. They see you commenting on their post. They're going to go, oh, now let's show their post to them.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that we control sales, but marketing we typically don't control, right? Like we can control our outbound. Inbound is a little spray and pray kind of thing, right? But in this case, we can control who starts to see our content based on us doing the outbound work of engaging first.
Well stated. I want to answer Dave's question, and then I want to kind of do a quick final round as we wrap up here today. But Dave's question is, what are your thoughts on commenting on a company post and then tagging a healthy connection, somebody you already know, somebody like that?
Well, only so I'm saying no, but if they could get some real value from it, for real, like it's a post that talks about how Microsoft is the #1 company using social selling, and now I go and tag Carson, that's appropriate, right? But if I go and tag someone from Apple, I don't know, whatever, right? No, you want to make sure that is a little.
You want congruency, right? You want congruency and relevance to the whole thing when you're doing the tag.
It's got to make sense. Now, I will tell you, I tag my clients often. If I know their business, I know what they're looking for.
Sure.
And if there is, let's say, someone that I think would be a great prospect for them, I might tag them in a post because they know to come in and engage and get on their radar.
Right.
The author loves this, right? For the author, if you are tagging people in comments, you're drawing traffic in for them. Right. So I don't think, and I haven't talked to anyone about this, but it's not the same as the author tagging a ton of people. But make sure it's purposeful. Don't just do it to do it. Make sure that the person that you're tagging will get value from the content you are tagging them on.
Love that.
That's the most important thing.
Prime example, if my company makes a post and just because I want to sell something to somebody, I think I'm going to go in and tag a bunch of people, wrong answer. But on the flip side, if another organization posts something or we have a joint press release and I want to make sure some senior executives at that company see it, perfectly healthy.
Yes. Yes. I agree. 100%.
Smart tagging is what I heard. So
smart tagging.
This
is a smart episode. I just love how great this episode has been because, sometimes you do 33, 34 of these things. You hit some common retreads, but we kicked up a lot of new topics today. Thank you, Brynne.
Oh,
I thought for sure you were leading into a movie reference there. I was like waiting, Carson, and then nothing there. Well, so as we wrap up here, I would like to kind of quickly go through and have each of us, kind of the last word on, social doesn't work because my people aren't on LinkedIn. Right. And what would be the last word that we would want to say on this as it relates to some of the things we talk about today? Brandon, why don't we start with you on what kind of the last word is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's treat it like offline. You don't go to one networking event and go, oh, the person I want to meet's not here. This networking event sucks, and never return. Right? They may not be there, or maybe some of their colleagues are there. We're always looking for the opportunities to build those relationships and connect, because again, we always go back to, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
And who knows you.
And who knows you.
Mm-hmm.
Carson, what's your take?
With LinkedIn, I mean, everybody can be the Kevin Bacon of sales. You can be within 7 degrees of connection. And so I think you look at the power of that. Even if somebody that you want to talk to isn't on LinkedIn, it doesn't mean someone who knows them isn't on LinkedIn, or somebody who's connected is on LinkedIn. And, you know, I'm a big believer, as I've talked many times, about propensity and probability and odds. And just because that prime target prospect that you want to talk to isn't necessarily on LinkedIn or posting, like Brynne said, you can't assume that this is going to be a portal to get you 1 step, 1 degree closer.
Brynne, what's your final word?
So build a purposeful network. Do not be a LinkedIn lion where you're accepting everyone. And don't be a purist where you only accept people you know. Really show up as a networker and build a purposeful network. Can I do 2 more attached to that?
Please.
Take inventory of your network, whether you export your connections or do a really good search, and identify all the people you've been ignoring and just reach out to them. My favorite thing is to send them a quick little video that, yeah, hey, and by the way, tip, if you click on contact information on their profile, you can see the date you connected. So you can say, hey, Carson, we connected back in 2016, yet we haven't really had a conversation yet. When your name came up, I thought I'd send you a little hello. And if you think there's an opportunity for us to network, let me know. We can set something up. And that's it, right? And just we can engage. And when you throw in the date that you connected, they know it's not a mass message, that it's a one-on-one message. Really important. And plus they go, oh my gosh, I don't remember this person at all, but they know when we connected. That's like, wow, that's pretty impressive, right? And the last thing is leverage your 2nd degree connections, your social proximity. Make sure that your purposeful network is leveraged, not just to have conversations with them, but to be able to search and filter their network and get really good, warm introductions that can start great sales conversations.
That's awesome. And my biggest takeaway is one of the first things that you brought up in the beginning, Brynne, which is the mindset of what you're doing here, right? And what you're doing is B2B sales. So you're trying to build that relationship with the business, and you're trying to use, and going to Carson's point all the time, you're trying to use every tool you have to build a relationship into that business. And when you look at it that way, it just opens up that playing field way, way, way much larger versus, oh, I'm trying to reach that individual and they're not on LinkedIn or they're not active. It just changes the mindset of what you're trying to do. So this has been some awesome stuff today. Brynne, are you on LinkedIn? Can somebody find you on LinkedIn?
You know, I am, and I'm even active.
Oh, wow. You are. Okay. I thought you were, you seem like a lurker to me. So I don't know, but.
Oh, I can be, by the way.
Okay.
I am a huge proponent of social listening, and a lot of times that is lurking, but so you can be both.
So where can people hook up with you, connect with you, do whatever online?
So yeah, obviously LinkedIn, and we have a free resource, a free library. If you go to linkedinlibrary.com, we have an enormous library, totally free, forever free. There's no trick. And we really curate all of our public stuff. So eventually wherever this lies will end up linked back in there. But I think it's a great resource if you're really looking to find some ideas on leveraging LinkedIn for business development.
Well, thank you. Your insights were awesome. Great show today, everybody. Thank you for all the good questions and comments. Some really good engagement here today. Carson, why don't you take us home?
Until next time, everyone. Thank you, Brynne. Thank you, audience. And